Good evening, everyone. I'm PJ O'Neill, serving as Branch Chief, STEM Training in the Aux Scout program. Welcome to this month's Tech Talk, from Sea Scouts to Maritime Academy to the high seas with Addison Lash, professional mariner. Many of you are aware of the national tragedy that unfolded in the pre-dawn hours of this morning. A foreign flag cargo ship struck the Key Bridge in Baltimore, Maryland, causing the bridge's total collapse. As members of the maritime community, I invite you all to join in a moment of silence for all the people impacted by today's event. Thank you. Tech Talks are sponsored by the U.S. Coast Guard, Coast Guard Auxiliary, and the Boy Scouts of America Sea Scout program. I will coordinate your questions after the presentation, but please feel free to post questions in the Q&A box at the bottom of your Zoom screen. Tech Talks are held on the fourth Tuesday of the month at 2100 Eastern. Next month's Tech Talk is on April 23rd. And as a reminder, this Tech Talk is being recorded and will be posted on both the Sea Scout and Aux Scout YouTube channel. It makes for excellent training with your shipmates in your Sea Scout ship or auxiliary flotilla. I want to introduce our subject matter expert, Addison Lash, who will be sharing his journey from scouting to his maritime career. Addison began as a Cub Scout after tagging along with his brother's troop. He earned the Arrow of Light Award and then transitioned to scouting. While attending the 2013 National Jamboree, he discovered sea scouting and was hooked. In short order, he joined the last remaining ship in the Baltimore Area Council and went on to earn Venturing Silver Award, Eagle Scout, and Quartermaster, a first in the Baltimore Area Council's history. He assumed leadership roles in the council as council bosun and later as the Chesapeake Flotilla bosun. His efforts established multiple Sea Scout ships within the council, including Sea Scout Ship 1801. Peter, do we have a technical problem? Okay. I'm sorry, everyone. My screen view changed and I wanted to make sure the Zoom didn't end. After the establishment of multiple Sea Scout ships within the council, including Sea Scout Ship 1801, which is still under his mother's guidance as skipper, it became the largest ship in the council. He comes from Harford County, Maryland. He entered Harford Community College very early at the age of 16 and ardently pursued admission to the Massachusetts Maritime Academy. He successfully transferred to the Massachusetts Maritime Academy in 2017. After his first semester, he entered sophomore status. His junior year, he embarked on the extended commercial ship expedition, and he ultimately earned his tankerman and person in charge endorsement. In 2021, Addison graduated with a Bachelor's of Science in Maritime Transportation and his Oceans U.S. Coast Guard third mate license of unlimited tonnage. He began his sailing career that same year in September of 2021 with Alaska Tanker Company aboard the MT Alaskan Explorer. He later transitioned to his current and permanent assignment on the MT Alaskan Legend. He continues to climb in his maritime career, holding an Oceans U.S. Coast Guard second mate license of unlimited tonnage, and he is working on his chief mate license. His ultimate aspiration is to command a tanker vessel as master before pursuing his dream of becoming a Maryland pilot. Now I'd like to turn over tonight's Tech Talk to our subject matter expert, Addison Lash. You're muted, Addison.
Can you hear me now?
Excellent.
All right. Thank you very much for that introduction. That was very kind of you. So thank you. My name's Addison Lash. I am a licensed second mate of unlimited tonnage. Um, I currently work with Alaska Tanker Company as a third mate. And I'm going to be talking about, the Merchant Marine's path, the Merchant Marine officer's path, and how, scouting has impacted me for that, and then how I have taken that to where I am now. So let's just get going on it. And you covered most of the few beginning slides that I have. So I'm an Eagle Scout, a venturing Silver Award recipient, a Quartermaster Sea Scout. I was a past Chesapeake Flotilla bosun, and I was a SEAL graduate, which that was a great time of my life was doing sea scouting, and I'm very thankful for that. Um, what got me into the my merchant marine career was sea scouting, was the falling in love with the water and wanting to do uh, is whatever I could, and make a living on the water. And in fact, I'll talk about a story I have of when I was 16 or so. My family and I went on a cruise ship, and as any of the teenagers watching can relate, when I was a teenager, then I didn't know what I wanted to do. I was kind of, kicking the can. Not. I was just not really motivated to figure out what I wanted to do. And my parents really pushed me to take a tour of the ship, of the cruise ship. So when I did that, they're walking me through, and this is where we keep the food, this is where we, do the medical, and this is that. And I'm like, oh, this is so boring. Why am I here? This is so stupid. Well, then we get all the way up to the bridge finally, and I step up and I see the horizon, I see all the equipment, and I go, oh, I want to do this. And the minute later, I went straight down. Once the tour was over, I went straight down to the internet cafe and looked up how to become an officer on a ship. And that's where this leads me. Is I then applied to the Massachusetts Maritime Academy, where I am proud to say I'm a class of 2021 graduate with a Bachelor's of Science in Marine Transportation. And I, at the time, graduated with a U.S. Coast Guard third mate of unlimited tonnage, any oceans. When I graduated, then I started working at the Alaska Tanker Company, and I sailed aboard the Alaskan Explorer, and then transitioned to the Alaskan Legend, where I currently serve as the 8 to 12 third mate. So I stand navigational or cargo watch from 8 in the morning to noon, and then from 2000 to midnight as the officer in charge of navigational watch and the tankerman person in charge. My other position on the ship, being the 8 to 12 third mate, is being the medical officer. So let's talk about Mass Maritime. She was founded in 1891 based off of a ship in Boston, and then proceeded to transition to Buzzards Bay, Massachusetts. It's one of 6 maritime academies in the nation, that is also excluding the Federal Academy at Kings Point. So there are 7 academies in total. There are about 1,500 cadets who are part of the regiment, and it's a Division III sports team. They've got football, lacrosse, soccer, baseball, you name it, they got it. And clubs up the wazoo, any and everything. There are 7 majors. The majors that offer a license, and when I say that, I mean a document saying that you can sail as an officer on a commercial vessel. That's marine transportation and marine engineering. So if you want to be a deck officer, you would go the marine transportation route. If you want to be an engineering officer, you go the marine engineering route. And they have facilities engineering, energy systems engineering, international maritime business, marine safety, marine science, safety, environmental protection, and emergency management. Um, like I said, I was marine transportation, so that's all I really know. I had friends who were part of the other majors, but they're all employed, they're all working, and they're all making really good money. Um, so keep that in mind if you're thinking about going this route. So to graduate from Mass Maritime, at least for marine transportation, I believe it's 152, 153 credits. Um, and some of my favorite classes were deep sea navigation, where you really learn how to sail across the blue sea, and you learn how to do the Great Circle routes, which are used every day by a lot of people on a lot of ships. Rules of the road, which we're all, I would hope, well acquainted with. Uh, these classes go very into rules of the road and like the theory behind them and different case studies with them so you really know uh, the rules when you uh, graduate. Stability and trim was one of my favorite classes. It was a lot of math involved, and it's the equations to figure out how the ship is going to lay in the water when you're loading or discharging cargo. I love that a lot. Applied ship handling was one of my also favorite classes where you really you work in the simulator. We have a full 360-degree simulator, and it's a group. Let's see, I think it was five cadets there, and we're all either the helmsman, the navigator, the officer of the watch, or I guess a quartermaster, and all of that were doing different scenarios of getting off the dock, getting onto the dock, going through a tight, canal or anything. It was a really neat experience. And then tugs and towing is an elective, and that was by far the best training I had was tugs and towing. I became a very skilled mariner, ship handler in that sense, doing that class with a twin screw application and really learning the physics behind, you know, moving a tow, and then eventually it moves into, maneuvering a ship like that. So Mass Maritime is a 4-year academy. So when I came in, I was a freshman, had to cut the hair, do a 2 week long orientation. For females, it's they you can either do a bob or a little bun back. In those 2 weeks is you can look it up on YouTube. They have great videos of the orientation process of that, but it's mostly doing PT, waking up at the crack of dawn, running, push-ups, getting screamed at by squad leaders, um, more PT, learning classes, learning about the school, some more PT, and then doing different, electives of getting your STCW certifications like basic firefighting, life saving, learning about different flotation devices, etc. So then after your first semester, you go on your C term. And this is typically held at the end of January and goes to, excuse me, the beginning of January and goes to the end of February. And it's about 50 days at sea. At least in 2018, we went to Colombia, Barbados, St. Thomas, and Florida. And on your freshman cruise, we went, they split it up. So for, half of the cruise, you are on the deck side. You're doing deck maintenance, deck watch, um, deck classes, and you're learning about different roles as a freshman, and you're maintaining the top side of the ship and you're learning about weather and a lot of things that we cover in Sea Scouts, really goes back and forth with that. Then at the other half, they switch it to the engine side. So it's the same thing, but it's just in the engine room. And I'll tell you what, that was my first few. It was 4 days in the engine room for me. 4 hour watches, so 8 hours a day down there. And the Kennedy, which was the ship the school used to have, um, it was a steamship and it was hot. And it was like standard 150 degrees, just the coolest area. So that's where I really realized I did not want to be a engineer and wanted to be on the deck side. But to each their own. There are a lot of people who go as a decky, and by the end of their freshman cruise, they realize that hey, the engineering side was a lot more fun, and they switch, or vice versa. So after that, I went. I did a different path than a lot of people, whereas because I transferred in 21 and a half credits, I was able to bump up to sophomore status. Um, in the spring of 2018. But for most people, they would do an entire year as a freshman and then come back in the fall as a sophomore, do some more classes, and then sophomore sea term, where we did again another 50 days at sea. And in this cruise, we went to Barbados, Puerto Rico, Tortola, and Florida. Um, the sophomore cruise is more focused on your major. And, this is a long time ago for me now, and I don't really remember what the engineers did. But for the deck side, it was mostly focused on voyage planning. And that was our big project that we had, the whole cruise to work on and then submit it. And if they, didn't pass it, you failed the cruise and you had to do the cruise again next year. But it was a lot of fun. This was my watch team when I was a sophomore, and yeah, it was a blast. But it's a training cruise, so you're learning a lot. You're working on the ship, you're making the ship run, and it's a great experience. So then after that cruise, you come back, you do another semester, come back in the fall another semester, and then you go out as a junior on your commercial ship. Now, most people would do a 50 to 60 day commercial ship cruise, whereas I was able to skip my spring semester of 2020 so that I could do an extended commercial ship so that I could get my tankerman endorsement. Um, Not many people did this. My class, there were only it was five of us who did that. Um, but tell you what, the I really enjoyed it, and I'm glad I did because I ended up working for the same company. So what I did was 90 days on the Alaskan Navigator, and what we do is we loaded cargo in Valdez, Alaska, and then went down to Cherry Point, or excuse me, went down to Long Beach, California to discharge about half of it, 3/4 of it, and then we would come back up to Cherry Point, Washington, and discharge the rest. And this commercial ship experience as a cadet is meant to really teach you the ropes of what it means to be a mate, and you're working side by side with all the mates, be it the two third mates or the second mate or the chief mate, and they switch you around to different watches and to be with the different mates and different overtime maintenance, and it was a great experience. I always think back about that time. It was a real blast, and it taught me a lot, how to be a mate, and then taught me how to be a tankerman. So then, because I did the weird, everything about my college experience was a little odd. So I got off in April, I think it was, of 2020, and then came back to school in the fall. And meanwhile, I even part of my C project, we had to write a journal, and it was very strange because we had to have a safety meeting in January to talk about the virus that was coming out of China. And being completely isolated on the ship, um, it was very weird. And, everyone went through the same thing of, oh, that's never going to come here. It's never going to come here. And then by the time I got off, we were all wearing masks, masks that I made on the ship. And then I come back to school a few months later, and it's, lockdown. And it was a very odd experience, but um, it is what it is. So finished the fall semester as a senior year, and then went to uh, COVID actually pause or made us miss the winter C term, the normal C term. So we actually had to do it in the summer, and it ended up only being 21 days, and we had no ports of call. And this one was just to finish up our final STCW requirements and get our celestial navigation out of the way and done. And we got off the ship, and the next day we graduated. Um, so my senior C term was not the typical experience, but it was a fun time. So nonetheless, sure, I wish we could go to we went to ports, especially as a senior, to get more privilege, but it is what it is, and you know, I'm glad at the time, but it is what it is. So to graduation, my seat time was about uh, well, here it is. So to get your license, you need 360 sea days. So 52 sea days from your freshman cruise, about 54 from your sophomore. I got 90 on my commercial ship. Sea term was 21, and you do maintenance throughout your 4 years, which adds up to about 3.5, 4 days total. If you add all those up, that doesn't make 360. Uh, the cool thing about going to an academy is you get a multiplier from the Coast Guard. So that ended up being about 387 days. But so that's really why when you get out into the real world of shipping, you're still very green, and you know your stuff, but you really learn the most when you actually get out there. So for exams, this is the pinnacle part of the education process at Mass Maritime. So for the deckies, we had 7 exams, and in the parentheses are the amount of questions, and the next to that, to the right, is what you need to pass as a passing grade. So rules of the road, uh, I think it's 2 questions you can miss. Um, the For the engine side, I think this is what it is. I had to find it in the CFRs, the Code of Federal Regulations, to find these. But like I said, I don't hold an engine endorsement or license, so I don't know exactly off the top of my head of what it entails. But from my experience, we had rules of the road, deck general exam, deck safety, navigational general, a chart plot, and then different oceans, and then different near coastal problems. So my last semester, we had this license prep class, and it was 3 days a week for 4 hours. And that class was just grinding out exams, practice exams, getting better, learning it, memorizing it, and then doing more work on the weekends. And it sounds grueling, and it is, but so worth it because during Coast Guard exam week, you have 5 days. Excuse me, you have 5 days to um, take all those exams, and by the fifth day, you're ringing that bell saying you passed, and it's one of the greatest feelings ever. So after graduation, I started working with Alaska Tanker Company in September of 21. I currently hold a Coast Guard second mate of unlimited tonnage. I'm studying for the Prince William Sound Federal Pilotage. Um, studying. You need that for chief mate and above with this company to sail there. And Prince William Sound is from Cape Hinchinbrook, Alaska, to Bligh Reef. And Bligh Reef is notable because that's where the Exxon Valdez ran aground. But so that portion is um, the pilotage that's required for my company at least. And then I like to say I'm studying for my chief mate upgrade, but as it stands now, I need to get a few more sea days for that, and then a lot of more classes, and basically get a master's degree in classes to go get my chief mate license. And then again, this time it'll be 8 exams. So a little bit about my company is where this is the Alaska Tanker Company. It's a subsidiary of OSG, Overseas Shipholding Group. On these classes of ships, we load 1.3 million barrels of Alaskan North Slope crude oil, and we typically discharge in Long Beach, California, and Cherry Point, Washington. But recently, there's been a lot of different ports on the West Coast, and our sister ship, the ship I actually started on, the Alaskan Explorer, she's loading now in Houston, Texas, and discharging in to a ATB, an articulated tug and barge, in the Delaware Bay. So that's a really neat route, and hope maybe I can get on that to do that. It would be kind of fun to do something different. About the ship that I work on, it's the Alaskan Legend. The MT is the motor tanker Alaskan Legend. She's about 941 feet long by 164 feet. She boasts the title, this class of ship boasts the title of the largest ship in the U.S. Merchant Marine Fleet. So that's a cool little fun fact for me. Deck to keel, so from the top of the deck to the bottom of the keel, it's 91 feet, 10 inches. And typically our freeboard is about anywhere from 60 feet to 30 feet, depending on how much cargo we have loaded. And the gross tonnage is 110,963 tons. So sailing has impacted me very well. I work half the year. And so I do normally a 75-day on, 75-day off. And those 75 days off, I'm enjoying being home, being with my cat and my girlfriend. And it's a really fun time being home. And then once that vacation's up, get on a plane and go board the ship and be an officer again for 2.5 months. And it's a really fun and exciting life. I've gained a lot in the last 2.5 years, learning to be a leader and to be an officer. This picture is from Christmas this past year. We all become really good. We become a good family, and it's a lot of fun, a lot of laughing, a lot of camaraderie. It's nice, and financial independence. It's a well-paying career if you get into it. If you're curious about it all, there are forums online on joining the Merchant Marine, and there's a page there's a forum page on G Captain that it's a bunch of old salts talking about how much money they're making with different companies, and different experiences, and you learn a lot about the industry through these websites. So, uh, you don't have to join the Merchant Marine uh, through a state academy if you're not feeling college. There are so there's let's see, let's go through it. So there's Mass Maritime, there's Maine Maritime Academy, there's SUNY Maritime in New York, there's the Great Lakes Maritime, Texas A&M Galveston, and California Maritime. And then there's also the Merchant Marine Academy at Kings Point. Um, if you're not feeling college, uh, you can join a union, an unlicensed union, the SIU, which is based out of Piney Point, Maryland. And they have a program where for the a year, or it might be 18 months, you go down to Piney Point, you get your basic training done. When I say that, I mean like your basic credentials done. And then they send you out on a ship for a few months, and you come back and do more training, send you back out, and you can get your able-bodied seaman endorsement, um, and a they call it a B book in the union, um, and within 12 to 18 months, and then you're set for a career. And it's a a lot of guys, they come in and then they graduate, or they come in, they do that basic tour, to get their AB endorsement, and then they realize, "Oh, it's maybe not for me," or they keep sailing. When I got off the ship this last time, there was he was a deck engine utility, part of the engine room. Um, it's similar to an ordinary seaman, just in the engine room. And he was 21. He had been sailing, which this he did a 10-month long work tour, which was crazy. But he had a goal in mind, and he bought a house on the ship, got off the ship, and went to his new house, and he's feels completely financially independent. So you don't need to go to college to join this career and make good money. But if you are feeling to be a leader and excel to the top, go to an academy. You can also obtain a, TWIC card, which is a transportation worker identification card, and apply to. There are a ton of entry level jobs with tug companies throughout the nation. There's a bunch of companies in different ports for water taxis. That could be a fun job to do, maybe as a summer gig or whatnot, or maybe it's you turn it into a career. There's a lot of room for growth in this company and in this industry, and I highly recommend it to anybody who's interested in it. Um, so, yeah, thank you very much for listening to me. I will be here for any questions. Of
All right. Well, thank you very much, Addison, especially finishing up with the many pathways into a career as a merchant mariner.
course.
There are a few questions, so let's get into them. Um, so this one, you don't have to answer personally, but from your experience graduating from, say, MMA, what do you think a reasonable starting salary range is? I know that's complicated because there's different types of jobs and different companies, but kind of a ballpark, you know.
Well, as a third mate, you can expect lower to middle. Well, or so like if you join a union, it's anywhere from 100 to 120 as a third mate. I know Military Sealift Command, they're hiring like crazy because they can't get anybody to work for them. But I will say that they are hiring third mates at, I think it's crazy. It's like 160,000 with a $30,000 bonus, and it's nuts. Uh, I'll say for me, I'm making middle hundreds, so it's a good salary for sure, and benefits. So.
That is excellent. And for our Sea Scout viewers that have not attended college yet and graduated and looked for that first job, that salary range is a very high starting salary right out of college. So
Yes.
take that as a hot tip.
Yeah.
All right. Um, More to your career. Early on, you mentioned that you're also the assigned medical officer. So could you explain a little bit what that is? And you're a decky, right? You had your deck training. So what kind of training did you have to receive additional training, and what is that job?
So there are two forms of or medical endorsement you can get for uh, as anybody as an officer. What I have is a medical care provider, and it is a pretty much it's pretty much basic first aid, CPR, and then how to talk to a doctor ashore, how to explain things, and then do what the doctor says. There's an additional class which I'm hoping to take next vacation I have called the medical care provider, or excuse me, medical person in charge, where that's a 2 week course of learning how to, start IVs and how to train, it, pretty much EMT stuff. Um, I'll tell you this, my first 2 weeks of boarding and being a third mate, green as can be, I there was a medical incident where someone had to be airlifted off of the ship, and I had to monitor that individual and take vitals of him every 30 minutes, and it was an intense root awakening to the job and the responsibilities. But um, you know, you're not alone in that instance. All the other deck officers are trained like that, and the master and chief mate have their medical PIC as well, so they can help out as well. In terms of the other things I do, I'm the first aid guy, and we have a full hospital loaded with drugs and equipment and a gurney and everything, and I've had to do a few medical routine things or, fixing up boo-boos and stuff like that, but you get used to it. Yeah,
Yeah, it's certainly a lot of responsibility,
definitely.
and
It's,
good luck as you advance in your training.
thanks. Yeah, yeah.
Um, More related to your specific ship or the class of vessel that you're on, how many crew? How many people work the
Uh,
ship?
uh, it's 24, about usually. Um, for the deck side, you got the captain, chief mate, second mate, uh, 12 to 4 third mate, and 8 to 12 third mate. And then you have the bosun, who's the lead AB, and then six other ABs. Um, so we can tie up a ship with, let's see, one, four, about 6 people, 6 or 8 people on deck,
Hmm.
and gets it done safely, efficiently.
Does AB stand for an able-bodied seaman or?
Correct. Yes. Yeah.
Okay, great. Um, and so you were mentioning some terms there, captain and then various levels of mate and able-bodied seaman. Um, But you went to the Massachusetts Maritime Academy, so you're an officer. Is there a split on a merchant mariner ship between officers and able-bodied seamen? Could you talk a little bit about how that's the structure of the ship is run?
Sure. So for the deck side, there are unlicensed individuals. On our ship, we don't have what I'm about to explain, but uh, as entry level as possible, it's an OS, an ordinary seaman. And
Mhm.
you've taken your basic courses, your basic life saving, your basic firefighting. Um, to then advance, the Coast Guard recently changed the requirements for this, but to then advance, it's a little bit more classes. You have to take 2 exams, 2 or 3 exams, and then you can become an able-bodied seaman, which is still unlicensed, but they're just a higher endorsement so that they can work on especially these types of ships. We do not employ OSs. We only employ ABs. So from there, a bosun is it's more of a union thing now. It's not an actual endorsement given from the Coast Guard. It's just the union. It's the union representative for the unlicensed on the ships, as well as the head uh, the head unlicensed, the guy in charge of the unlicensed. Um, so that's the top of the unlicensed. Then it's the you have the licensed, the officers, otherwise known as mates. Um, so the third mate, then you do once you get licensed, you take your exams from the school, you get your book, and you say, all right, I'm a licensed officer with a third mate endorsed or license. You then sail 360 days, and then you can send in a packet and upgrade to second mate. Then you need an additional 360 days of sailing and multiple classes, and then you take 8 exams to become a chief mate. And then from the chief mate, it's a 360 days while sailing as chief mate to then upgrade to master or captain.
That's a lot of sea time.
Yeah, so
Yeah.
yeah, so I think I figured it out. I'm like I'm at 530 sea days right now or something like that. So still
Great.
new, but
Yeah.
you know.
Great. Well, you've been telling us quite a bit about your career. So let's rewind it if you can remember this. You mentioned, that I heard you say PT a bunch of times at the academy. Um, so say I'm a high school sophomore, I'm a high school junior. What should I do to prepare myself if I've listened to you and I say, you know what, I really am called to the sea and I'd like to apply to a maritime academy. What kind of things should I do to prepare um, physically, right, for the rigors of academy life? And then what would you recommend? How do you prepare in school?
Well, I would start running, um, and do some basic lifting. If you can run on your own, and it sheds it, for me it sheds weight. This last work tour I lost close to 40 pounds, and I felt great. I was working out every day in addition to working on the ship, and I just dropped weight. It was great. But yeah, if you just need to be motivated and determined to want to live this life, and uh, I mean it's a lifestyle for sure. It's you just gotta be motivated. There are people who make it through, and are working to this day who are at the cusp of being maybe not the best physically adept, but they still make it work. So you don't have to be this mucho, big guy lifting 500 pounds. It's just it's basic. I think the requirements are like a mile in so many minutes and so many push-ups you can do and so many sit-ups, and that's it. It's if I can do it, you can do it. Really. So
That's great. Um, there was another uh, question that came in. Some commercial vessels lease their cabins to public as kind of a no thrills form of passage transportation. Have you ever been on this type of cruise with
I have
these
not.
types of passengers? Are you aware of them? Do you know anything
I've
about?
heard of that happening on some foreign flagged container ships. Um, but as a U.S. flagged oil tanker, that's a no-go. It is a vital for our economy, and we go to the same 2 spots. So even if someone could get on, it would be kind of pointless too. Um, but because we're only in Valdez for less than 24 hours loading. that many barrels of oil. Uh, and it's yeah, no, I haven't seen it. I haven't heard anybody from my colleagues from school who've experienced that, but no, that's an older thing in current, maritime security levels. It's not really a thing anymore.
Thinking along those lines, do any of the positions, say on your ship, require any type of security clearance?
No, unless you were to go join the government's, I guess you can call it a company, military SEALIP command, um, as an officer, I believe. I was going through the application process with them out of college, or while I was still in college, and they were starting to get me on a security clearance and everything.
Mhm.
Um, but I decided to go private instead, and there's no security clearance here.
Well, that's good to know. And maybe one last question, taking to someone that may have a sparked interest in the academies. Um, are they like normal colleges that you can visit if you're in high school? Can you do a visit, maybe over the summer during the school year? Is there anything special that someone has to do to go check out, say, Massachusetts Maritime?
Absolutely, they're normal, well, as normal as you can get for being a resident at school, but it's still a college. These are still public colleges, and they have on their website to, schedule a tour. And I have a great memory with my mom that we, one week we just went and hit, SUNY, Mass, and then Maine, and we looked at all of them, and then. It was a really fun time, but I decided Mass Maritime. And yeah, absolutely, you can go to any of them and walk around and learn, what they have to offer.
Well, good. That's a good endorsement for anyone interested in a merchant mariner career. Well, Addison, I would like to thank you very much for not only sharing your professional knowledge, but giving very good advice and also sharing some of your personal sea stories um, with all of us here tonight. Um, I hope the rest of you will join us on April 23rd for our next Tech Talk. And please be reminded that this Tech Talk was recorded and will be posted on both the Aux Scout and Sea Scout YouTube channels. Have a great evening, everyone.
Thanks for having me.
Thank you, Addison.